Okay, today we are talking Orient Watch Company and a few examples that I have on hand of some Orient watches that I personally wear. I personally own these watches. A lot to be said about Orient. I will try to summarize this the best way I can. I will undoubtedly miss a few things, and that's okay. This isn't a full blown history lesson, but just some insight to the brand, some of the things they've done over the years, why they're, in my opinion, a good choice, especially on a, let's say, really any budget, and there's points of contention there as well, but especially on a limited budget, you can do some amazing things inside the price ranges they allow you to play with due to just what they offer being so well made for the price that it is. Sometimes I think people want to take the phrase, bang for your buck, or you're getting, when someone says something to the effect of you're getting so much value for dollars spent, they almost take it as an insult. And I don't think that's, sometimes I'm sure it could be meant that way, but I don't think that's always true. I think there's a lot to be said for getting bang for your buck. There's quite a few watches out there that, if you handle or even purchase, don't live up to the hype or the expectation of what you would think you would get for what you're paying for. Orient's the opposite of that, in my opinion at least. So Orient started in 1901 in Japan. When they started, they were focused primarily on doing pocket watches, clocks, things of that nature. At the time, the wristwatch really hadn't taken off. 1934 rolls around, Orient's still making clocks and pocket watches, importing some as well. During this time, they decided to make their first wristwatch, and they do so. And they continue to do so until 1949. In 1949, at the end of the World War II economic collapse of Japan, the company shuts down for 1 year, reopens in 1950, and in 1950, the Japanese government at the time was attempting to recover from World War II and from the destruction that happened in their country. So in 1950, the owners of Orient Watch Company, still the original owner at the time, I believe, signs a deal with the Japanese government, which allows, due to this time, as the Japanese government is attempting to rebuild their economy, one of the things they do is make it very attractive for people to open manufacturing inside Japan. So they signed this deal with Japanese trade, and they're back in business. They're making watches again. In 1954, I believe, roughly, was when they actually kind of got, more openly traded and became more of an actual player in the game. Orient continued to make watches for up until 2001, as far as still under the same banner. It had changed names a couple times, through the years as we were talking about the Japanese market and the economy, but ultimately it was still the same people. 2001 rolls around, Seiko Epson acquires Orient Watch. Now at this time, there wasn't a full integration, so you were still having Orient watches made the same way. In 2017, Epson fully integrates themselves into Orient Watch. There is differing opinions on if that time frame is the cutoff of Orient Watch as we know it, and some people want to tout that you should only buy watches pre-2017. However, I haven't seen anything to support that. Other than that, Orient was now a part of Epson fully. They still made all the things that made Orient were and are still happening, in my opinion. What are some of those things? So, one of the things about Orient that I really like, in 1954, the Orient Star, that's kind of really what it came online. It became their flagship of the Orient Star line, which is now their more premium version. People compare them to Seiko Presage series, something similar to that. I would tout that it would be closer to their take on like a King Seiko in that $1,800 to $2,500 and up price range. And the reason I say that is that the finishing is fantastic on any of these watches I've ever picked up on the Orient Star line. Orient still, by the way, aren't bad. They've got a lot of really cool things like this King Diver over here we'll talk about in a second. But ultimately, the finishing, the fit, the materials, the craftsmanship for an Orient Star, you really do get an unexpected amount. It's very much this feeling of, oh wow, I can't believe it only cost this much. I was expecting it to cost this much. That's the feeling that I get. And I think that's the feeling that most people are trying to describe when they talk about value for money. Because that is true in my experience, that every Orient Star I've picked up has had that same effect on me. That I got it for, you know, 400 to 600, roughly across the board here on these three, at least in the Orient Star line. And with some of my watches that are in the $1,500 and up price range, that's kind of where I would actually expect them to land. Were I to not know anything about the company, and you were to tell me that they had heritage and they had in-house movements, which is a big thing, I would have fully expected to be paying 3 times what I paid for these watches. So that's really what got Orient going. Now they've had some success over the past few years with the Bambino when it's a dress watch that I used to have. I don't own one anymore. I don't know why I don't though, because they're $110 if you look in the right spots. At minimum, most spots on Amazon you're probably going to pay $150, and they're a gorgeous dress watch, automatic dress watch. All of these watches you see in front of you are automatic. They all have hacking and hand winding. Like I said, in-house movements in all of their watches. Their Orient watch, their Orient Star watch, all of these have an in-house movement. And that's something that they show off with an open heart design, which is where you can see the hole cut out in the dial if you didn't know what that was. This is kind of this brings us to the love it or hate it part of Orient Star and Orient in general. Most of their watches have 2 key features, but it's not all. As you can see, these two don't have both. This next one. They have open heart designs predominantly in their collection, as well as power reserves. Now, both of these are not without reason. If you go back into Orient's history, the power reserve was, I don't remember if they were the ones that came up with the first power reserve indicator or not, and I don't want to misspeak, but I believe that if they weren't, they were one of their first hit watches actually had a power reserve on it, and it was kind of this thing that just stayed with them as they designed watches throughout the years. The open heart similar in that aspect. I think that at times, no one will bat an eye. Let me put it this way: no one will bat an eye if Audemars or another high-end watch company makes a skeletonized watch or something showcasing their movement, because it's high horology, because it's in-house movement. But when Orient, who gives you a movement made in-house, the entire movement, they make it. Nothing is outsourced. It's all made in-house. When Orient does something like an open heart design, which is fairly subtle, because I do believe if they went full skeletonized or something like some of these high horology brands do, it would just look cheap, and it would be dismissed as cheap. And I don't think if we allow Audemars and some of these other people to do something similarly, that because they have an in-house movement, and I guess, the price probably does kind of let you do more what you want in that price range. I don't know that we can deny Orient that same privilege. They absolutely have made an in-house movement, so I believe they should be able to show it off without criticism, at least from that aspect. Okay, so that's enough just straight talking. Let's look at them. So, first on the list, this is a weekly auto Orient King Diver. Interesting watch. The King Diver was what it was marketed as. You've got the diver on the back of the case back. So this watch, it does test to 200 meters, but to get a diver's rating or an meet ISO, you have to have a couple of different features working in tandem, or there's certain items on that list you can have, but you've got to have so many. If you're used to messing with ATF or anything about stamps or with your firearms, you'll know that there's certain criteria. It's almost like there's certain things that have to be met. So this watch is 200 meters water resistant. However, it didn't meet all those criteria, so you don't get to actually see, 200 meter water resist on the dial, which is fine. It doesn't bother me. I'm not diving with this watch. It's a vintage looking watch, compressor style, where you've got the internal bezel that rotates with one of the crowns. I'm not, I'll dip in the pool with it. That's about it. That's about all I do with most of these watches. I'm not a diver. Very few of us are, as far as watch people go. Anyways, with this watch, I think some of the quirkier things about this guy, other than it being a compressor style, is one, the hands are gorgeous. Love those hands. I think they look great. This is a reinterpretation of an original that was a big hit, and it's pretty close, and I think they did a fantastic job. Number two, the interesting thing, the weekly auto part. So, from the best of my understanding, this was actually a translation error during the time this watch was originally manufactured. And so when they were trying to basically translate that, hey, it's got a day of the week function, they did it incorrectly. I guess it just didn't translate as well, and nobody checked it, so it went out as the weekly auto, and it stuck. Nobody really argued that, thought it was cool, kept trucking. So very cool watch. Loom is what it is, but I think I picked this guy up for like less than $200. So what are we complaining? I didn't really like the factory bracelet. It wasn't that great, so I took it off, threw it on an old expansion bracelet. Turned out pretty cool, or an old looking, vintage looking expansion bracelet. Going back into Orient Star, there's not many watches that I own that I can't find something I don't like about them. And these three are absolutely outliers in that. So one thing interesting about Orient, interesting I guess, is probably not the right word. Frustrating is probably better. So other than some of these reissue top watches, most of these don't have an actual moniker or name, and they just have reference numbers. And unfortunately, their reference numbers similar to So, it's not going to be a 4 or 5 digit number that I can just spit out. Most of them start with an RZ, if I remember correctly, and it's, 15, 16 characters. If you want to know these item numbers for any of these three watches and you are interested in purchasing, I'll absolutely comment below and I'll absolutely dig that information for you. But for the sake of the video, I'm not going to sit here and spout off all these different numbers. So anyways, going back to that, this is one of my Orient Star divers, and this guy's fantastic. You got the Coke bezel, which I really like. It looks good. It's a matte finish. It looks extremely good. You don't always get that when you get colored bezels. The loom is outstanding, as good if not better. This might be the best loom on any watch I own, beating out some of my Citizen ISO divers. I've just recently acquired the Prozilla, and even after having that watch, I don't think its loom is as good as this. It does have the power reserve indicator, but does not have an open heart design. They do make some with that. Obviously, this guy meets our ISO requirements because he's divers 200 meter on the dial. The finishing on this watch is absolutely fantastic. I like that they were able to meet their ISO requirements with a screw down without crown guards, because I don't know that design would have worked as well. The bezel flows so well with the case. 120 click, you can hear it. No back play. Not unless I overshoot, but yeah, there we go. No back play at all. Very functional. But again, the finishing on this watch is fantastic. The bracelet's nice. It's very comfortable. Take off my King Turtle so I can talk about these bracelets for a little bit. Generally, a factory bracelet is not something that I jump up and down on or get too excited about. I almost always plan on replacing a bracelet because until you reach a certain price point, generally bracelets just aren't engineered that well. They're just made to be a placeholder, in my opinion. And at their price point, you would not think these bracelets would exceed that, but they do. Both the Orient watch that I did take off of a bracelet, like I said, this was a $200 watch, where these are in the $400 to $600 category, sorry, not category, $400 to $600 price range. The only thing to complain here is it's a stamp class, it's not milled, but again, I don't care. This thing is super comfortable. The finishing on it is fantastic. Everything flows well. It sits on the wrist. Doesn't feel as big as it really is. There it is against the King Turtle, which also notoriously well wears smaller than it actually is. Another one of these. So these newer Orient stars I really appreciate because this guy makes a fantastic do it all daily. There's no day or date function, time only. But 100 meter water resistance in a dress style watch that has some okay lume. I say okay, it's probably really good for what it is. Factory bracelet is fantastic. Doesn't look like anything special, and there's only 3 positions, but it is a milled clasp. It sits slightly proud on the wrist, but not enough to complain about. But the dial is absolutely breathtaking, along with the rose gold trim on the hands. The numerals look fantastic. Another thing Orient does, they're very big on focusing on having Roman numerals, specifically at the 12 and 6 o'clock, which is sorry, it's been a rough morning. Also, I don't do multiple takes. This is a one shot, so you're gonna hear me make mistakes here and there because I'm just not that vested in this. I do like talking watches, but I don't expect it to ever go anywhere. So we're just gonna have me with a one take here. So again, back to the watch. 12 and 6 o'clock Roman numerals is definitely something that they invest in, and I particularly like it. Some people don't. Feel like it looks cheap. I don't feel the same. Another Orient Star dress watch. This guy's just gorgeous. It's a sub-second hand watch. It's the only real movement you're going to see going on other than the open heart. Sorry, I'm gonna get this guy where I can put him back on. Other than the open heart is that sub-second moving, very small down at the 6 o'clock down the watch. Here we go. I can't multitask very well if you guys can't tell. And I did not size this correctly, but that's okay. You can see how well this guy wears on the wrist. This bubble design I really like. The crystal just sitting right in line with the design of this case. It's a gorgeous watch. Dial looks fantastic. You can see the movement chugging along inside. Applied indices, as with all of these, honestly, every one of these watches. A lot of bang for your buck there. There's the movement, nothing crazy, but you can tell they took time and they invest in showing off what they've done, and I can't blame them for that at all. Ultimately, everybody wants to talk about their big brother, the Seiko, and Seiko is well known for value, what you get out of a Seiko. I mean, I have a friend, Riley Mitchell, that is one of his famous sayings is just go buy the Seiko, and I don't blame him because you can't go wrong with so many people copy the formula that they have. But I think at times they overshadow their little brother out of Japan, and ultimately I understand why, right? The market Orient watch is not marketed well here in the U.S. Unfortunately, Orient USA, in my opinion, should be replaced. I don't feel like they do a great job of representing what the company is and marketing it accordingly. And I think that's why you can buy them for as cheap as you can, relatively speaking. Because most of the time when I buy one, it's coming from overseas. I usually purchase from Noman or Creation. I think Noman has them. I can't remember. I bought them a few different times from a few different people. But yeah, I think these guys are both great examples of dive watches that come out of Japan. And I think at times, again, it's easy to overlook Orient when the big brother really does some amazing stuff. Still doesn't negate that they're still fantastic watches. If you've ever thought about picking one up, I would, with no reservations, recommend grabbing an Orient Star, especially. Orients themselves are not bad at all, but for the price we're paying, we're getting a lot of value, whole lot of value. And whether you like some of the design cues or not, I don't think anyone can argue that these aren't objectively attractive watches, and at least that their finishing, their fit, everything is executed well. You don't always get that. And I think for something that's executed well for the price that you pay, it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat. All right. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, sorry.